boys and girls. Welcome to class today. How are you doing? I am mighty fine. In our last lesson, just before we ended, we started looking at structure in poems. Do you remember that? Can you recall what we discussed? Yes. And so today we want to continue right where we left off. We are going to look at the form of poetry, or what we call poetic forms. Let's go. So, just before we get into the actual crux of the lesson, here is one just for fun. It's titled Ellie Telephony by Laura Richards. Once there was an elephant who tried to use the telephone. No, I mean an elephone who tried to use the telephone. Dear me, I'm not quite certain that even now I've got it right. However, he got his trunk entangled in the telephone. The more he tried to get it free, the louder buzzed the telephone. I fear I'd better drop the song of Telefop and Telephone. Yeah, that poor elephant, or the speaker, whichever the person is, seemed to have all his words tangled up, didn't he? Hope you enjoyed that. Now for our lesson. Today we have several keywords that I would like for us to look at. The first one is line. Then we go on to stanza, rhyme, and rhythm. We're going to learn each of these words and a little bit of detail about them. Examples, perhaps. Let's see. Line. In poetry, there's a term used that's called line. What do we mean when we say line in a poem? Poems are written in lines, which vary in length. This means that a poem can be either long or short. It can also be somewhere in between. A line is literally a single line of words in a poem. Here. It's titled A Bird Came Down the Walk by Emily Dickinson. So we see a poem. Remember, we're looking at poetic form. So here is a poem, and what did we just say about lines? It is literally a line that you see. Therefore, a bird came down the walk is termed a line. Can you identify another line? There you go. He did not know I saw. That's the second line in the poem. What would be our third line? And line 4? Good. Can you tell me how many lines are in the poem now? So we have 4 at the top and 4 at the bottom, which gives us 8. There are 8 lines in the poem. Now we want to go on to stanza. What is stanza in poetry? A stanza is a group of lines before a break. It is often called a verse. Stanzas are to poems and paragraphs are to stories. Do you understand that? What I'm saying is that just as how you have paragraphs in stories, when it comes to poetry, we don't have paragraphs. Instead, we have stanzas. Let's take a look. The same poem, A Bird Came Down the Walk. What would be the stanza in this poem. Remember, we just said a stanza is a group of lines before the break. Do you see our stanza? Yes. So this is stanza 1. And where would the break be? Right there. Stanza 2. So you have stanza 1, and then we go down to stanza 2. Let's review. We just learned the first 2 of the 4 key terms that I give to you. Those 2 terms are line and stanza. So, can you identify the lines and stanzas here? So, what's our first line? That's a line, yes? And then we have line here. Is that correct? I believe you missed a line. Yeah. So this would be line 2. You can never miss lines and stanza. So all the yellow arrows that you see are lines. Line 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you continue for the stanza below. Lines 5, 6, 7, and 8. So you have stanza 1 at the top, and then you have stanza 2 at the bottom. All right? Maths is even involved in poetry. The length of stanzas can also vary. Remember before I told you that the length of lines can vary? I'm also telling you that stanzas can be really long and they can be short. Which brings us to kinds of stanza. Here, I'm giving you several kinds of stanza. There are stanzas that can be from 2 lines straight to as many as you like. But for your level, we're only going to learn these today. A couplet. These are all French words. So couplet means a line with 2 stanzas. I go that again. Couplet means a 2-line stanza. Triplet or tercet has 3 lines, which give you 1 stanza. Quatrain is a 4-line stanza. Then we have quintet. A quintet is a 5-line stanza. Sestet or sextet is a 6-line stanza. Then the septet is a 7-line stanza. Lastly, we go to octave. The octave is an 8-line stanza. So you're going to meet all of these as you go along from grade 7 straight to grade 11. Let's go them again. The terms are couplet, triplet or tercet, quatrain, quintet, sestet, septet, and octave. Be sure to learn all of these terms. That way, you'll sound like the brighter student. Now let's look at some stanzas in detail. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. This is a famous nursery rhyme, don't you think? Yeah, but it's also a poem. Which kind of stanza would this be? It has 2 lines. So then it has to be an example of a couplet. Now I have 2 more examples for you. This example is going to be about a little bird. The bird sang in the tree. It sang toro, tori. Oftentimes, couplets are rhyming. So as you can see, tree, tori, star, are. Our last one. My country, 'tis to thee, sweet land of liberty. And there you have the Statue of Liberty. So these are three examples of couplet, rhyming couplet. Why? Because the last word is rhyming. Now we go on to examples of tercet. Tercets are three lines in a stanza. Sisters. She calls me tofu because I am so soft, easily falling apart. I wish I were tough and full of fire like Ginger, like her. So here you have two stanzas and two tercets because each stanza is actually a tercet. Yeah. Three lines in a stanza, hence it is a tercet. Quatrain. Remember, a quatrain is a stanza with 4 lines. So as you look at this poem, Car Wash, how many lines are in a stanza? How many lines do you see before a break? 4. Car wash. When I'm hungry, I eat cars. I can chew 3 at a time. Turning mud to sooty bubbles, all day long I swallow grime. My mouth hangs open every spring, luring cars to my garage with promises of shiny beauty, cleanliness, a deep massage. I love all my meals on wheels, antique and sporty, short and wide. I eat them up, I clean them up, I spit them out the other side. Quatrain. 4 lines in a stanza. So let's recap. We did 2 of these keywords, didn't we? We looked at line and we looked at stanza. Yeah. And we went a bit in detail when we came to stanza. We learned that there are several kinds of stanza because stanzas can be either long or short, just like lines. So that means we have 2 keywords left. Let's see them. Lines in a poem often rhyme. And you know this, which means at this point you should get excited because this is something that you know already. And you know that I'm going to give you a poem that rhymes. Ellie Telephony. You saw this one previously. And when you look at elephant, telephant. Elephone, telephone. Now you tell me the next one. That's quite right. Trunk, telefunk. Free, telefee. And the last 2 are song and telephone. That's what rhyming is all about. What is a rhyme? It's the repetition of the same ending sound in 2 words. Why do we rhyme? Because we want to link lines of a poem together. It is pleasing to the ear. Don't you like how those sound? Yeah. And it flows, kind of like a stream, nice and easy, and so we read it nicely. It grooves. Yeah. It's interesting to the reader. Rhyming. And our last term, rhythm. I like rhythm. Rhythm is familiar to us all, especially Caribbean people. You just give us some music and we start, yeah, we be jamming. Check this out. Humpty Dumpty. You know this nursery rhyme, don't you? Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty Dumpty together again. So, Humpty Dumpty. Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses, all the king's men couldn't put Humpty Dumpty together again. So you kind of have like a bounce going there. Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty Dumpty together again. And we go. Now you try it. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. Yes, and so that is what rhythm is all about. So, rhythm is the flow of the beat in a poem. It gives poetry a musical rhyme. And it can be fast or slow, depending on the mood and subject of the poem. Now let's end the lesson. We got to summarize this. Put everything we've learned together. Poetry is an art form. We get to be creative when we're writing poems. Poems have structure and form. And we learned this today, didn't we? There are keywords used in poetry. So we have 3 points based on everything that we would have said today. Poetry is artistic. You can be creative with it. You can choose whether you want to be long or you want to be short and make it creative through rhymes and rhythms. But remember, there is always a structure to anything that we do. My, we have done a lot of work today, haven't we? Yes. And so I hope that you have made jottings so that you can always recap, or you can go on our Facebook page and review the video. Make sure you learn each and every one of those terms. Bye-bye. I'll see you next time.